Welcome to the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast, the show where we discuss what it takes to create a sustainable long-term online business in today's fast-moving environment. We talk with industry experts and freelancers alike to find out what it takes to build and manage a location-independent business.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast. I'm your host, Adam Finan, and in today's episode, I'm really excited to bring you a man who I met many years ago in Thailand, in Chiang Mai. His name is JohnnyFD from JohnnyFD.com and the Travel Like a Boss podcast. Johnny, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking time to come on today.
Yeah, Adam, I'm super excited to come on. And it was fun just chatting offline right before about how we first met 5 years ago in 2013 here in Chiang Mai.
Feels like a lifetime ago. I've had a child in the meantime, so I can't even remember life before that. So yeah, I mean, this is probably a good place for us to begin and start. Why don't you talk to me about like what led to that decision for you to move over to Chiang Mai, and why you decided that you wanted to work online and be able to work remote. What was it that brought you to that decision, and what were you doing beforehand?
Yeah, so I grew up in California. I went to school in Orange County, and I got a good corporate job. I was living in LA, and I went to Thailand on vacation, and I just fell in love with it. It was just the most amazing place in the world, and I stayed for almost 5 years before I even started working online. I was working as a dive master at scuba resorts. I was doing Muay Thai, and I really loved it. But after 5 years of just bouncing around, following my passions and kind of living the first half of the 4-hour work week, but running out of savings, never making more than a couple $100 here and there, maybe getting free accommodation if I was training at a Muay Thai gym and fighting kind of under their promotion, or taking people scuba diving. I realized I needed to actually get back to making money and not watching my savings deplete. And that's actually like exactly where we had met. And it was funny. The question, I mean, you had mentioned some of the questions I was asking you when we first met in 2013, right?
Yeah, so I mean, we met to paint a picture for everybody. I got invited. There's a very popular podcast and website called ScrewThe9to5.com, and Jill and Josh Staunton were living in the same building as me in Thailand, and that's how I got to know them. And we used to go to Pond Space together and co-work and things like that. And they invited me to this party with all these online entrepreneurs. At the time, I was a member of Dynamite Circle, it's called. It's an online community as well. I used to be in that community, so I mean, it was a lot of people from that. And I went to this house party in this apartment with my pregnant girlfriend, way up high somewhere. And like, this was just the most mad apartment with big, huge wooden doors and carvings of elephants and like traditional Thailand, scenery and stuff like that. It was super cool. And one of the people there was you. And, we got to talking, and you were asking about, you were curious. You were asking about like, what is it that you do? How much money do you make? You know what I mean? Like, is it a good business? Or are you spinning your wheels? You were very interested in learning what is it that people were doing, but that was the most effective, if you know what I mean? Like, not just like at the time I was doing freelance writing and travel blogging. And I mean, freelance writing it can be a bit of a slog if you don't jack up your rates pretty quick or start outsourcing it. So I don't think that sounded too appealing to you at the time. So I'll let you tell me what you remember, if anything, from way back then.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm still super curious about what people do and how successful they are. And that's why I always ask that difficult question of how much money do you actually make from it? Because it's so easy to hear, about these fancy online businesses or these things people are doing. And you might look at their Instagram and they might look like they're living a great life. They might be living a flashy life. And then you find out that, they don't make any money from it at all, or it's way less than it looks like they're making. And now I ask these questions because I genuinely want to know so I can share with my audience, especially on the Travel Like a Boss podcast, and share things that really work. But when I had met you in 2013, I was asking because I wanted a way for myself to be able to make enough money so I can continue living in Thailand and not have to go back to the US and get a corporate job. So I'm in a very different place now, but pretty much doing the same thing.
Absolutely. And I mean, there was a lot of people in that room who did a lot of very different things. You had a lot of affiliate marketers, you had people in e-commerce, you had people doing SEO agencies. You know, I mean, it was a very eclectic mix of you know, what you say, online entrepreneurs. But I'm totally on board with what you're saying. You know, like profit first is, you know, if you can build an online business and a profitable one, then by all means, putting your energy and focus into that versus, you know, it takes the same amount of energy and focus, but into something that's not going to be profitable and has smaller margins. And you know what I mean? You'll be just as busy doing it. So, so I guess around that time and after those sorts of conversations, you know, what did you then pursue? What did you see as like, okay, this is the sort of thing that I want to set up for myself? What was the next kind of steps after that? Because I mean, beyond seeing what you do on Facebook and listening to your podcast, I mean, I wouldn't know too much about what you did next at that point in your life.
Yeah. So at that point, you know, I had met a ton of people. And when I would ask those questions, I would find out that the people living the flashiest lives, the ones that, you know, are staying at luxury hotels and, you know, taking photos by the pool with a 5-star breakfast, a lot of the travel bloggers, or I guess now, you know, you would call them Instagram influencers, they weren't making any money. I mean, they were barely making a few $100s here and there for a sponsored post. They would spend all day emailing, you know, resorts and hotels, just trying to get a free room for a night in exchange for writing, you know, a long blog post, posting a bunch of photos. And I realized that's a lot of work for not any tangible reward. And then I would meet people who were making a lot of money, but were doing things that I couldn't see for myself. You know, at the time, you know, like the CPA, the cost per action in affiliate marketing, or, you know, creating apps and like software as a service. I just didn't have the skills for it. I also didn't think it'd be something that I would even really enjoy learning. So it wasn't until, well, I guess at the time we met, I was making a little bit online. I had my first ebook on Amazon. It's called 12 Weeks in Thailand, The Good Life and the Cheap. And it's all about those first, you know, 4 or 5 years of living cheaply in Thailand while scuba diving and pursuing my passions with Muay Thai and just, you know, really just living the cheap, good life. But it wasn't enough to survive. It was maybe about $200 a month in net profit, which even though Thailand is very cheap, it still wasn't enough to live off of. And that's why I was so curious what people were doing. And it was probably very shortly after that that I discovered dropshipping, which, if you know, your listeners aren't familiar with, it's a fulfillment model where you basically sell products online, physical products that get shipped to somebody's house. And it could be small things or expensive things. I chose the high ticket route where my average order value was between $400 to $1,000. But it's a similar concept to the drop shipping that a lot of people do with cheaper products. Basically, instead of ordering products up front and having a warehouse full of it and dealing with the shipping returns of it, you become an authorized dealer for a company or a brand. And once you sell product, you forward that order to them and they ship it directly to your customer. And ironically, I built all my stores through Shopify, which is the company that you work for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Shopify makes drop shipping easy for people, I guess, if you're using, there's a number of different apps, but I mean, Oberlo would be the main one that people would use. But I don't know, I guess this kind of circles back on what we were talking about before, like with, you know, what's the thing that'll give you, you know, same amount of effort, but a greater return. And like, you know, I mean, you can sell fidget spinners and make $1 or $5, or you can sell, you know, something for $400 or $1,000 and take your 30% commission. You know what I mean? The same effort, same energy goes into building the site and doing all the things and marketing and SEO and running ads, but the returns are two very different scenarios, you know? So I guess that, and what you said about getting clear on what you want, because I mean, I hear you. I started as a like freelance writer / travel blogger. I built out a huge network of travel websites. I used to buy expired domains, rebuild websites, sell links and advertising on these websites. I mean, that was a whole business I done for nearly 2 years. And I used to help other people who were doing that same business. And like you're saying, it like I look at that now and I just think I just wouldn't want to do that. The same way as I look at people who do software as a service and I think it's just not for me. It's a huge slog. It's a huge investment. So I guess getting clear on what you want and the lifestyle that you want, I think is very important as well. Because, you know, what you choose to follow and where your energy and focus goes, you got to be all in or it's probably just not going to work out, is it?
Yeah. What's funny is during those 2 months of kind of exploring what types of business models there were, or what type of online businesses I could start, I remember I was very clear on what I wanted, but I didn't know it existed. I didn't know what dropshipping was. I never heard the term before. I remember, asking people, I want, say, how can I sell physical products, but not have, but from Thailand and not have to deal with inventory or warehouse? And people said, no, it's not possible. And I guess at the time, it just wasn't a popular term. People didn't know what dropshipping was. I was kind of lucky that what I really wanted existed. And the reason why I wanted to sell physical products and not either, a virtual product like a online course or an ebook, or like a subscription to something or software, is because I wanted to sell something tangible as my first real business. In my mind, it was a lot easier to figure out, how do I sell this barbecue grill, like a nice, something that you would buy normally for $300-400 at Home Depot. I know if I can become an authorized dealer for that brand of barbecue grills that people want to buy anyways, and I can figure out how to market it online, I can sell it for the same price and just get the margin for it, instead of Home Depot or Sears or whoever is the brick and mortar dealer for it. And I still recommend that to a lot of people today, where as your first business, it's much, much easier to wrap your head around an actual product that you can touch, you can see, that people actually receive in the mail, they can take a photo of, they can use it, versus trying to sell something like, let's say, an ebook, for example. Why are some ebooks 99 cents and why are some $200? They're both a PDF. And it's really hard in the beginning to wrap your mind around which one is worth 200 and which one's worth, pretty much nothing, and how to market that, and how to get people to buy a $200 ebook when they can also, download one for free.
Oh, I hear you, man. And dropshipping was kind of new back then. And I feel like it went through a period of, I don't know what would be the word for it, but there was just a bit, sometimes when internet marketing gets its hands on things, it can dirty it up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it made it look, you had a bunch of people with making false claims and, like selling some bullshit courses, trying to, like there was a period of that. I feel like it's died down a lot now, but like there was kind of it was the thing to do for a while. And I feel like you were doing it beforehand and not in this sort of model at all. I'm not trying to say that, but what I'm saying is, like it went through a period where there was a number of courses came out and it was the hot thing to do, and then it switched to Amazon FBA after that. Like it kind of went through a cycle. But dropshipping and in the method you're talking about, like where you're becoming an authorized dealer for a brand, and then you're treating it like any other e-commerce store. You need to figure out how to market that product, how to get it in front of customers. So I feel like that's a brilliant approach. So can you talk a little bit more to that? Like how did you start to approach brands to sell for, and how did you look to acquire those first sales for those dropshipping stores or that dropshipping store?
Yeah, so it was actually probably very shortly after we met. I had basically been just meeting random people at meetups and events, and just do friends of friends, and just offering to take people out to dinner, just, to kind of find out more about what business models they were in, just trying to find out what I wanted to do or what I could do. And I stumbled upon this guy named Anton. He was from New York. And over dinner, he told me a lot of great tips about how I can sell more books, just be a better marketer with books. And when I asked him what he did, he explained, he sold expensive products online. And it was through something called dropshipping. And that was the first time I had ever heard the term. I think I went home and I Googled what dropshipping is. And I looked it up in like Wikipedia or something. And I saw that he had a course that he had just come out with, antonmethod.com. And I decided, okay, let me give this a shot, because this sounds like exactly what I was looking for. And in the course, at the time, actually, Shopify was relatively new. I don't know how long they've been out in 2013, but they were still pretty new, and they had a lot of competition. Building things off of WordPress or BigCommerce or other sites, and they all look kind of similar in the beginning.
Yeah, not now. Shopify just steamrolled over all of them.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is before it was literally a coin toss. You can go with any of the three, and you'd be like, okay, yeah, I guess. But luckily, Anton had really taken the time and he said, look, I built stores on all three. I've been doing this for 10 years. Shopify is by far the best. Just go with them. Don't ignore the other ones. And I, built my first store on Shopify, and it's so much easier now. It was, 5 years ago, if you guys remember any software 5 years ago, it was a lot harder to use. So I'm a bit envious of people starting now because just life is so much easier. But I built a demo store, something to kind of look like what I wanted my store to look like. And then I started calling suppliers and I just said, hey, this is Johnny. I have this e-commerce site. I would love to sell your products on my site. How can I become an authorized dealer? And 5 years ago, none of them had ever heard the term dropshipping before. They didn't have, a dropshipping program. They just had a wholesale account. And what that is, you can buy bulk products at a discount. And usually it was, 40 to 50% margin. So you got a big discount, but you'd have to buy 100 pieces or 1,000 pieces at once. And I would tell them, look, I don't have a warehouse. We're an online only store. How about you lower our margin? So instead of giving me a 50% margin, just give me a 30% margin or 35% margin. You keep it in your warehouse and we'll just, we'll just fulfill orders one by one. So instead of you shipping the product to me, why don't you just ship the product direct to the customer? And in the beginning, a lot of the retailers, a lot of the dealers, they had never heard this concept before. And they're like, that sounds like a lot of hassle. I'd rather sell you 100 pieces now and let you deal with it than have us, ship directly to your customers. But I called around enough places, and a few of them were like, I guess we can give that a shot. I mean, it's not that much more difficult for us to put on a different, postal stamp directly to customer or ship it to you. It'd be nice if we can, sell you 25 units up front, but it's money. We'll take it. And I, would get their product list. And in the beginning, it was really difficult. It was like catalogs physically in the mail and I had to scan in. I had to try to find photos somewhere. Now it's so much easier. Like every single supplier has a zip file with all the images, all the descriptions. Sometimes you can just upload it directly to Shopify and just import it. So things were definitely a lot harder back then, but it was also nice because it was like a fresh start. Now when you want to start a dropshipping store, you have to be better than everyone else out there. And that's why I'm so happy to still be a member of this course and, kind of constantly updates of new marketing strategies or new ways to stand out, because it is much more complicated nowadays than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah. And I mean, that's very innovative too. Like that whole method, that's not dropshipping in, like what you would say, the traditional model of what you see people advertising online. I mean, traditionally, a lot of people go to Oberlo, you find products, you make cool Facebook videos, you run a load of traffic, and you acquire sales. You know what I mean? That's like, for the majority of dropshippers, that's how a lot of them are doing it. And this is just old school business, but it's like, I love how you approached it. It's like, look, I'm not going to buy 50 units, but I'll take a lesser margin and I will send you sales and you will fulfill them and you will put my sticker on it or my shipping label. And I mean, at the end of the day, you're doing the upfront work in that you are selling their product for them. They're still making a margin. So they're still moving units. So, I mean, from a business perspective, they're in a good position. You're literally sending them business. You know what I mean? That they don't have to pay for. Otherwise, they'd have to pay for with pay-per-click or with Facebook ads or with, an SEO strategy. You're taking that all away from them. Obviously, they're making a bit less in terms of a commission, but everybody has, there's a cost to acquiring a customer as well. If they were to run PPC, they might be paying 15% to acquire that sale anyway. You know what I mean? So, to instead take that off and give it to you, and you literally just send the business to them. Such a fabulous business model. I love the innovativeness of it, and it's great that, I suppose, like you're saying, you learned that from the Anton method. I've seen his course too. So just to paint a little bit of a picture on the time frame. So from the idea, I'm going to do this, you picked up the phone, you started ringing suppliers to acquiring your first sale. roughly how long was it, and what strategy did you use to then acquire some customers for that store?
Yeah, so the entire turnaround from signing up for the course, building the demo site, calling suppliers, having a live site that actually took payments. In the beginning, it was way more complicated. Like Shopify payments didn't exist. It was Stripe, and then I would have to make an account with them, then integrate with Shopify. Now it's all kind of just done. You sign up for Shopify, everything's kind of in there. But what it was is right at the end of the first 8 weeks, the first 2 months, I turned on just Google Ads, Google AdWords. And within days, I want to say within 3 or 4 days, I got my first sale. And I remember it was one of the cheaper products, but because I'm doing more high ticket items, the cheapest product we had was $369. And I remember getting that sale at like 1 or 2 in the morning. I was, because of the time zone difference, it was it was during the day in the US where my customers are based, but in Thailand it was like the middle of the night. And I remember seeing that cha-ching and seeing the Shopify notification saying you made a sale, and I was so excited that I packed up all my stuff, went to the co-working space, which luckily was across the street from where I was staying, and it's 24 hours, and it just sat there like thinking like, okay, how do I actually fulfill this now? And I remember just sending my supplier an email saying, hey, we have an order, please send it to this address. This is the item. And it just went from there. It was the first moment of this new life. It was the first moment of being an actual business owner.
That real, I mean, the owner of Shopify, Toby, often talks about, it's that feeling when you get your first sale, like you can't replicate it. You're like, proof of concept, this works. I can sell stuff on the internet, brilliant, so like that. And then that's really inspiring story, I mean, like that was really, so it was about 8 weeks, you know what I mean? It was a lot of work. It was Google AdWords that actually led to the sale. So look, this is brilliant. So you did end up spending, I mean, at that point, were your budgets modest for PPC? I mean, for high ticket items, I would imagine maybe the ads were a bit more expensive for clicks. Like, can you talk to that a little bit? Or was it like, did you have a set amount? Because you were saying, you're being modest with your budget, all the time you'd been living in Thailand. Like, do you remember roughly how much you put up for, I'm going to spend $1,000 on Google Ads in this first month and see if that works? Or did you have,
Yeah. So I was running out of money at the time. I think during those 8 weeks, I was just living off of what was little like left of my savings. I had less than $1,000 left. And actually, I remember calling my cousin, who was a lawyer back in the US, and I said, and just saying, hey, I'm running out of money, but I really want to make this work. If I have to call you in a few weeks, can you, spot me some airfare to get back home, if I get stuck out here? And
sweet.
It was actually pretty funny because the reason I called him, and not someone, anyone else, he was the only one I knew that was making over $100,000 a year. So I assumed, $1,000 plane ticket wouldn't be that big of a deal for him. But even him, even making 6 figures, he was like, yeah, no problem, but you have to give me, some notice so I can get the money together. And I thought, how is that even like possible? If I was making $100,000 a year, surely I would have 10 grand just in the bank at any given time, minimum, if not 100 grand in the bank, and that's when I also realized people living back home are spending just as much as they're bringing in. So it doesn't matter if you're making 100 grand living back home, if you're spending, $2,000-$3,000 on your rent or your mortgage, another $800 on your car, another $500 on insurance, another couple $100 on gas. It really adds up. So I knew right then that if I could make this work, even if I can make $1,000 or $2,000 a month living in Thailand, not only will I have a better quality of life, good weather year round, but I would actually probably save and have extra money left over, even compared to someone making 6 figures back home.
Absolutely. I mean, having lived in Thailand too, I love it, and I can speak to, the quality of the accommodation and the services and everything that you get for a far lesser figure. You also have a lot of time saving things, like, silly things that take up a lot of your time, like washing clothes and doing laundry and all that sort of stuff. When you're in Thailand, I mean, you pay like £2, you get all that done for you. It's like, it's, you know, but when you're at home, that sort of stuff can take up a lot of your time. But look, I hear what you're saying. Living at home is expensive. City living is expensive. Maybe your cousin lives in a city. I mean, I know I have friends who live in Dublin, in Ireland, and they pay like €1,500, €1,700 for a tiny 2-bed apartment. And my friends in London pay even more than that in sterling. So it's like $3,000 a month, you know, US, or maybe not US, maybe $2,500 US. You know, it's a lot of money just for the room that they're in. You think if you paid $2,000 a month and you were in Thailand, well, where you'd be living? You'd probably be in the Hilton or something, you know. So look, I mean, that's all brilliant, and it's an inspiring, and it was good that you had your cousin there for that backup and security. And I guess it was a light bulb moment in your life where you're like, okay, but look, I mean, you could, at home you're making that money, but the lifestyle doesn't equate and the freedom doesn't either. So when this thing started to take off and this thing started to grow, at what point did you seek help? You know, did you look to outsource? Were you doing everything yourself for a period of time? What did the initial stages of that business look like?
Yeah, definitely in the beginning, I did everything myself. I would leave my phone, you know, the ringer full blast next to my bed. So if somebody called with a question at 4 a.m, I would pick up and I would try to perk up and, you know, be as you know, as normal as possible. And it was normally a question about, you know, how long would something take to ship? Is something in stock? You know, really kind of easy questions. And it was actually very fortunate that I was in this weird predicament, you know, being in Thailand in the different time zone, because it forced me to outsource really quickly. You know, so the first thing I did was hire somebody that was in the US. It was actually this, you know, older retired lady to answer my phones. And I said, you know, every time you answer the phone, I'll give you, you know, I think we started at maybe $15 an hour, but each call was usually only 5 or 10 minutes. So it actually wasn't that much money. And she was just at home anyway. So, you know, she was retired and she would pick up the call, you know, the phone, and she would look at this little FAQ that I sent her, you know, like, oh, these items take 2 weeks to ship. These items ship within 2 to 3 days. So, you know, people would call, I would hear the recorded conversation. So, you know, the very next day when I would wake up during a normal time, and I would just give her kind of some notes saying, oh, next time, please say this, or like, oh, great job. And instantly, I was not just a small business owner. I was a small business owner with an employee.
Wait, and you're not dealing with customer service anymore. That's like the first thing you got to get off your plate if you're an e-commerce store, you know.
Definitely. And then the second employee was an accountant from the Philippines. She had a master's in accounting, yet she was only charging $2.50 an hour. And I had her do all of my books. So every time I would have an invoice come in, she would plug that into Excel or into Google Sheets. Every time I had a you know, at the end of the month, like, she would balance the books. And it made my life just so easy. You know, I actually remember within 2 or 3 months, I was making $2,000 to $3,000 in net profit, you know, after all expenses. And I had 2 employees that were paid for, and I had all this free time all of a sudden. And I thought, this is way better than living back in the US, because after taxes, that was the same amount of money I was making working a $48,000 a year job in corporate California and having, you know, 40% of my taxes being taken away.
Absolutely. And can you just talk a little bit about, you know, where you found those employees? You know, which freelancer site, or was it a recommendation from a friend? Where did you come across those people?
Yeah, so I found the customer service lady, I think it was Upwork. Yeah, I think it was Upwork. And the Filipino lady, it was originally a site called onlinejobs.ph that used to be good, but I no longer recommend them. I unfortunately, they just kind of suck now. I think what happened was whoever started that business, you know, maybe got a little bit lazy and decided, okay, well, we're making money, we don't have that much competition, so let's just kind of rest on our laurels.
Let's take the foot off the gas. Yeah, no, I actually, it's kind of funny you say that, because I mean, I've used onlinejobs.ph before as well, and I actually feel a little bit similar, but you know, that they were really good. I mean, I find that you just don't get the people on there that you did before, you know what I mean? So yeah, no, that's interesting that you would say that. But now I have actually found one good agency who I still continue to work with to this day on onlinejobs.ph, but we don't work through that. You know, we work, you know, via Payoneer and Skype and
Yeah. So that's actually a great business tip out there. If anyone's looking for a new industry to disrupt, if you want to create a better version of a a freelance site looking for or to be able to hire Filipino VAs, it's out there. There's plenty of people like us that are looking for good quality workers, but pre-screened and not the garbage that's out there now.
Yeah, I mean, the big difference between online jobs.ph and everyone else is, they required for freelancers to upload government IDs and, to maybe verify their bank account. And it gave this layer of security, but also you're not hiring people like by the hour on there. You're hiring people either part-time or full-time. You're really trying to find that person to add to your team and not just like a one-off ad hoc. And you can get people on there, you can get a good person for $400 a month or $350 a month. Like Johnny mentioned, like people with masters who are teachers, it's a whole different breed. Like it's a brilliant marketplace, but I just feel like, I don't know, I just haven't got the results that I wanted out of it the last 2 times I've used it. So, I mean, I'm looking elsewhere now when I'm looking for freelancers. And I kind of feel a little bit, I mean, Facebook groups is quite good these days as well. I'm in a couple of different Facebook groups for like digital nomads and virtual assistants, and sometimes I'll ask in there and I'll get them, if I want somebody, just ad hoc or one-off for a project.
Yeah, definitely. I think recommendations are still going to be king right now.
Yeah, it just took a little bit of time before that part of the industry evolved, I guess, a little bit, But I mean, look, I still use Upwork, people per hour. And then I have 2 agencies, actually, one in the Philippines and one in India, who I work with for all of, web design and SEO projects that I do. So, I mean, they're good. And I did find the Filipino one off onlinejobs.ph. I just wouldn't be paying their €70 a month or whatever it is just to stay signed up. I don't really agree with that. Screw that. Right, cool. So, and then, I suppose, as the business grew then, did you really have any growing pains, or was this kind of like that business was good, time to focus on some other stuff? What was the next period here now for you?
Yes, I spent probably the next 6 months really optimizing that store and just growing it, adding more suppliers, adding more products, increasing my conversion rate, from, what started at 0.5% up to 2 or 3%. And I guess for people who aren't too much familiar with e-commerce, when you increase your conversion rate from 1%, which means 1 out of 100 visitors buy something, to 2%, it not only doubles your profit, your bottom line actually triples, because you're paying the same amount in ads and expenses, and you're able to just have way more profit from it per dollar spent. And I got the store, I think the best month I cleared $7,500 in profit. And I was ecstatic. I was so happy. And best of all my suppliers let me fulfill my products, or would take credit card as payment. So at the time, I was selling between $30,000 to $40,000 worth of products a month, and putting all that on a credit card. Plus the $29 a month I was spending for Shopify, plus the couple $100. I think it was between $500 to $1,000 a month for Google ads. And I started racking up so many points for travel. And that's when I really just started, focusing on seeing more of the world. It's my first time ever going to Europe. It was my first time ever flying business class. It's the first time spending, all this time just seeing different countries. And the travel bug bit me. I realized I can just maintain my store. I don't have to work on it too much, because I had spent the time at the beginning growing it. And I think this is kind of where a lot of people mess up in their digital nomad journeys, is they want to skip to this part first without doing any of the work. And because it is the most exciting part. It's the part where you're really living the 4-hour work week. And I was literally just working 4 hours a week. I would log in for 20 minutes a day, sometimes an hour, and check emails, fulfill orders, take a look at what my employees were doing and making sure they're doing it right. But they were handling the day-to-day. Customers were buying things. Everything's on autopilot. And I was living the life. And I think what happened was I kind of just let it slip. I wasn't growing the store. I wasn't, keeping up to date with marketing strategies. I wasn't as excited about it. I wasn't as passionate about it. And the sales of the stores, slowly dwindled a bit. My margin started kind of going down as ads got more expensive, and I just wasn't really focused. I wasn't passionate about it. So I eventually sold that store, but it was nice because not only did I make, $2 to $5 grand a month from the actual store while I was running it, not only, did I get a ton, I think I racked over 1 million reward miles to be able to fly around the world. But then when I sold the store, I got a $60,000 check, just, free and clear. And I took all that money and I put it into an investment, and I was able to just kind of rest off that for a while.
So yeah, I mean, like it's okay to buy it or, to build it and sell it. A lot of people can be emotionally attached to the business that they built, but at the end of the day, it's, if you built a real business, like it was an asset that could have been sold. You know what I mean? It generated revenue. It didn't rely on you. Like you couldn't sell JohnnyFD.com. That's you. You know what I mean? But this business is, or was, sorry, it was a business that had been built up. It was an asset, and you can sell it for whatever it is, 20 or times the monthly revenue that the websites are going for. So that frees up your time, frees up your surplus, it gives you a surplus of cash for you to focus on the next thing. So did you go back into dropshipping after that, or did you like you said, you invested the money? I imagine after you get to that point and you see it work, you maybe you'd be like, okay, I lost my passion for barbecues. Maybe I want to try and sell stand-up paddleboards. Did that happen? Did you transition? Did you open a new store? What did it look?
Yeah. So what was funny? So I was dating a girl at the time, and she was an English teacher, and we wanted to, I wanted to travel. It was the first time I actually had the money and the time to travel. But she had a normal 9 to 5 job. It was more of a 8 to 5 job, and we were able to go on, trips, here and there on a 3-day weekend, or maybe if it was like a longer, week break. But I was trying to convince her to start working online. And, we did a side project. We created a small course on Udemy called Small Talk, just like a basic online course, just to kind of get the ball rolling. And that worked out. So we said, okay, let's start a dropshipping store together. I already know what I'm doing. So, let's go this route again. And it was hard working with someone. To be honest, I remember we had a bunch of fights, over, I remember even through the niche selection process in Anton's course, he recommends writing down a list of 50 possible niches and then just going through each one and crossing them off if they don't fit his criteria. A lot of it's like competitive analysis, seeing, how easy suppliers are to get, as well as which ones are using what advertising platforms and things like that. So for me, it was just very like mechanical almost, where I went through the list, and I remember we were traveling at the time because she had already quit her job. And we were in Borneo, really beautiful, place. And we were at a scuba diving resort, and we sat down on a computer, and I just started crossing off, things that didn't work. And I remember every time I would cross something off, her heart would break a bit because she had put so much effort into thinking of these niches or researching it. And she thought all 50 were good. And it's not that they were bad, just that some just didn't fit the criteria.
And that creates tension. It creates tension in the room.
We had the biggest fight. I didn't realize she would, be emotionally attached or would be mad about it. But when I crossed out, the first 40, it's like, nope, terrible. It was really bad. But luckily we made it through. We there was a bunch on that list that would have worked, and we just randomly chose one. We built the store together. Actually, I think we were in South Africa visiting her parents, and then going on a safari and seeing some animals, and we got our sale. We got our first sale while we were there, and we were so excited. I don't think her dad really understood why we were that excited, because it was a small sale. I think it was a couple $100. Maybe it was even like a $200 product, but we knew, we're like, this is it. This is going to be it. And for the next 3 years that we were together, that was our business. We would make, 2 to 3 grand a month in net profit from that business. I had some other things, happening on the side as well. And when we broke up, we sold it. So we ended up selling that one for 57 grand. We split it, and that was store number 2.
So, I mean, and was a lot of it the same, like repeatable processes, repeatable workflows, with things like were you using Google Ads? Was it the same strategy, or was it a different model where you're using Facebook ads? Or can you talk a little bit more about the model?
Yeah. So the model is the same. And here's where people get really confused. People ask oh, why aren't you using Facebook ads, or why aren't you using? And it's not that they don't work. It's that they don't work for our category or our price range. I want people to understand that.
Yes, right. Choose your battles.
Yeah.
And, not every Facebook ads is not right for every business model. So brilliant. Sorry for interrupting, but that's such a point,
Yeah. No. And here's the problem. All right, so here's the problem with trying to start a business without following a plan or following a course. There is a ton of free information out there. There's a ton of good information out there. But the problem, it's the same as like trying to bake a cake by piecing together a bunch of recipes that you found on YouTube or online without following through any one recipe. They all work on their own, some better than others. Some are, made by professional bakers. Some might be like, people that don't really know what they're talking about. But either way, they're all okay. But the problem is when people just try to do it on their own with just random pieces of information, it's like taking part of a cake recipe, part of a pie recipe, part of a strudel recipe, and just throwing it all together and saying, hey, why is it not working for me? And to really kind of just, illustrate it, I want you guys to imagine, you're browsing through Facebook or you're browsing through Instagram. You're just scrolling and just looking at fun stuff. And then you see an ad for a $2,000 barbecue grill. You might like it because it looks cool, but then you're not going to buy it. The chance of you buying that product when you weren't previously looking for it is basically zero. So I've just wasted that advertising dollar having a pretty much a 0% chance of you buying that product. Versus, imagine I spent the same amount of advertising money, or even more, running a very targeted Google ad where it only displays if you put in the exact search term 2.5 meter granite barbecue.
You know what you want there.
Exactly. If you put that term in, I guarantee you're in the buying mindset of finding that item. And if I can match you to that item at a fair price and have a good quality site, I will get you as a customer. And that is why for those type of products, this advertising strategy works so well. I will use Facebook retargeting ads once I've identified you as that customer to say, oh, by the way, remember that barbecue that you've been thinking about? We're having a free shipping sale this weekend if you want to buy it. Or here's a 5% off coupon, or get a free oven mitt or like barbecue mitt as a gift if you buy it today. So that's when that works. But also on the flip side, if I was selling really cheap products off of AliExpress using Oberlo, and it was a $2 product or an $8, a free plus shipping product, there's no way I can afford to spend $1 per click or $15 per conversion on a Google ad. Also, nobody is typing in fidget spinner, especially when people don't know what fidget spinners were back then. Like nobody was typing in these phrases of what you're offering them. The reason why those work so well on Instagram, on Facebook, is because people are browsing through, they see a cool little new gadget or invention. It's free plus shipping, or it's $5. It's easy for someone to buy that, and that's why that works so well in that type of market.
No, I hear you, man, and I think it's brilliant, and it's good advice and good knowledge for people, because a lot of people can be blinded by drop shipping is Facebook ads. You know what I mean? Like that's that can be an incorrect perception that people might have built up. So look, this is fabulous, and it's been great to get a lot of these ideas. So can we talk a little bit about so you did you mentioned that you used a course. So did you pay for mentorship, coaching along the way? And can you just talk about that? I know you mentioned the Anton method. Was there any other ones that you used, or is that pretty much
that was it? And, and it's been 5 years. I still recommend that his course. It's still great, and actually it's better now because he keeps adding new content to it. And you kind of have to be honest. I think in this day and age, if you just followed his basic 8 modules. Like when I started, the course was really cheap. It was under $1,000, and it had 8 videos. It was like 8 11-minute videos, and it said, okay, this is what you do, and it was good enough. At the time, it was groundbreaking. But every year, he just he adds new videos saying like, okay, here's a new strategy. This is what we do now. So now the course is giant, and now it's it's well over $1,000 now, but it's one of those things where you kind of have to stay up to date. You can't just listen to, kind of old information because times change. The internet changes really quick, and so does e-commerce, especially with competition.
It's always changing. I mean, it's in a constant state of evolution as people's attention changes. 6 months ago, a year ago, Instagram stories wasn't jack. Now it's so important for businesses and brands. People's attention changes, and how people search changes. And as an e-commerce store owner, you need to be adapt and willing to pivot. I guess you have to be agile. You can't be fixed and set in your ways. You need to be agile. You need to be willing to experiment, try new things, pivot if things aren't working, and not get caught up in just saying that this is the way it's done and this is the only way it works. Because there's one sure thing about online marketing and e-commerce: things change all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And so I guess to answer that question, I never paid for coaching at the time, but I was really active in the private member forums. They have a private members Facebook group now too, but the information I would get in there, it was basically like coaching, because I would have people who were more successful than me or just kind of further along, answering my questions. And what's really nice about these paid communities, behind a paywall, just not like a public thing or Reddit or Facebook group where anybody can join, is the people in that community. First off, you can tell they're serious because they paid the same amount of money, as you to join. But second, usually they're a bit more invested, and they're just serious. They're not there just to like troll or like,
No, but you're all, as you say, you're invested in it, and you all have the same outcome, like grow an e-commerce business. Like, so you're, I love the analogy, a rising tide lifts all ships, because like that is literally how I feel in my work. Like, you got to level the whole team up. When everybody comes up, we all get better together. So I feel like a positive group like that is brilliant it's good for your motivation too, because you can have shitty days when you work online, so sometimes things mightn't go so well. You might seek some advice, like you're saying, from somebody a bit more experienced. It's like, oh man, I'm trying this thing, it's just not working. They're like, it's good to have those people you can rely on, and they're not trying to, once again, like I say, sell you anything or pitch you on a service. It's just like straight up, look, I know what I'm talking about, I've done that too, here's what I think you should do.
Yeah. And I think, the reason why they take the time to answer you is because they know you're serious. They know you've paid money to be in that course, that, you're probably actually going to follow the advice, versus whenever you give advice, in a public free form, people don't actually listen. I think people don't value it, and then you have 20 other people giving their version of, their advice, usually from people that never done it, or just people have no idea what they're talking about. But if anything, it's just, at least in the forms of one course, everyone's following the same method. And then you don't get contradictory information. Because if somebody asked me in Anton's forums, should I use Instagram ads? I would say no. But then if someone asked me, in a AliExpress dropshipping group, like, should I use Instagram ads? I would say yes. And it's because we're following different recipes and different formulas. And I think, if nothing else, if you guys didn't take away anything else from this interview, I want you guys to just understand it is so important to follow one recipe. And it doesn't mean that one person's right or wrong. It means that the advice that they're giving you only applies to a bagel or a cake. It doesn't apply to both.
No, I hear you, man. And it's easy in the online world to, things are flashy, shiny object syndrome, your attention can shift. It's hard. I think it's hard to stay focused on one thing and not, start taking all these other recipes, if you will, into consideration, because, but like, I mean, you alluded to before, this didn't happen overnight. This is a long period of focused work on one thing. This wasn't, Johnny woke up one day and was doing quite well and flipped his e-commerce store. This was months of consistent work, fulfilling orders, building teams, managing ads. You know what I mean? And then eventually you got to sell it and you started a new business. But like, this was a period of work that led to this outcome. It wasn't just, as they say about, you weren't an overnight success. Like, it was, you didn't see all the work that went in, the 4 o'clock in the morning customer service calls, the trips to Pond Space, like, there was a lot of work to get you to where you are.
I would say another big takeaway is, the private member communities are really, really good. That's probably the best you're going to be able to do online. But what's even better is meeting people in person, really connecting with like-minded people in person, especially at a paid conference or a paid retreat. I just got back from Bali at the annual Dropshipping retreat. He has it in a different place every year. But going there, it was like night and day, between that and, the conversations you have online with nomads or, random people, or even just online in the group. In person, people are super open. Like, people are showing their niches and showing their stores, showing like the new things that are working. And I think it's because when you get to know someone in person, they just trust you a lot more, than you being a random person online.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot that you can't replace with that physical human interaction. We're social creatures at the end of the day, and a lot of things, you'll pick up on people's cues. You know what I mean? Whether you're like, I like this person, or I don't know if I trust that person so much. It's like, I don't know if I trust them enough to show them how I set up my ads. Or it's like, oh, this guy's cool, this girl's cool, I'm on board with them, I like them. Here, look, I'm very open. I'm like, I'll show you anything I got. You know what I mean? Like, if when it comes to the online stuff, like, if I know and trust that person and they have similar interests, you know what I mean? Like, I would show. So that's brilliant. And just, can we quickly touch on just some tools that you might use regularly? So, I know you have a podcast, you have a website, do you have an e-commerce store at the minute? So you mentioned you sold your last one. Do you have one at the moment?
Yeah. So what's funny is I'm actually in the process of building a bunch more. So what I did last year was I created something called a dropship partnership, where I invited a bunch of people to Chiang Mai, and I'm taking a percentage, and they're building the stores and we're working together. So we just started literally a few days ago, and the goal with the 7 people that flew out here is for us to all build stores together. They keep 70%. I have 30%, which I'm going to split with some of my employees, but we're going to walk them through building the store with the goal of flipping them after, between 12 and 14 months, and having kind of this empire of dropshipping stores.
No, that's brilliant. I mean, I've seen people do that in the affiliate space with the Amazon affiliates, where you come, once you've hit $1,000 a month, you can team up with these guys who are really good at SEO, and they take a lot bigger cut, to be honest. I think they take 50%, and it's like everything after that $1,000, it's 50-50 profit. You know what I mean? Like, or 50-50 split. But this is a good model, because what you're doing there is you're bringing your experience, they're investing their time. I'm not sure what the story is with the ads and the money, but like, look, it's a good model, and you have a different. I like your model of dropshipping. That is something that's sellable. It's not reliant on the next gimmicky gadget, the next flashy lighty racing car set, the next fidget spinner. It's a different model. It's real serious businesses driving sales for real physical businesses. And, that's, I could buy that off you, and then in the morning I have a store that works. It's not reliant on, like I'm saying, the next hot thing off AliExpress. You know what I mean? So these are different business models, and they're more focused on the long term, I think. So that's brilliant. And you host some events in Chiang Mai from time to time. Have you got any coming up this year or in the new year?
Yeah. So the next event we have is the Nomad Summit, January 19th, 2019. It's a big annual gathering of location independent entrepreneurs, digital nomads, and people who work online. We're all meeting in Chiang Mai, Thailand, which is kind of the mecca for all things, remote work. Yeah. It's where we met 5 years ago, and it's grown. Oh my God, it's grown so much. I remember in 2013, it would be impressive to meet up with 10 other people doing the same thing. It was just mind blowing to see that 10, 15 people together. Last year we had 400 people attend the event. It's like us taking over the city.
I think it kind of has happened a little bit. When you speak to that, I think my birthday dinner, I think it was my 27th dinner. You were at that too, if you remember. And there was like Nick Loper was there, and you had Niall Doherty and Jill and John. There was a whole bunch of like online entrepreneur people, and it was like, for me, that was huge to have that 10 people there. I was like, oh my god, this place is full of so many entrepreneurs. And now it's probably just like, whoo, everywhere you go, it's just laptops and people in laptops drinking bulletproof coffee.
It's been a really fun journey. It's been an incredible 5 years here in Chiang Mai, watching it grow. And the Nomad Summit is kind of like the annual reunion. A lot of people, have come back 4 or 5 years in a row now, and it's like their time to meet new people. You kind of welcome them to the lifestyle, but also just to reunite and catch up with people who are already doing well.
Okay, so who's it for? Is it for I want to get started at Digital Nomad, I want to work online, or is it for people who are like, I'm a freelancer, I'm already doing a little bit? Like, who would be the ideal candidate, do you feel, to come to the Nomad?
Yes, so the theme of the Nomad Summit is leveling up. So it's just getting to that next level. We really try to have it for people who already have a business and take them from making $1,000 or $2,000 a month to really having a and maybe they're still trading time for money, to really being able to get them to the 6-figure or higher mark. But I would say still at least 30-40% of the attendees are people who are new to it, who are excited, because those are people looking for conferences. A lot of them actually use the Nomad Summit as a milestone to say, okay, I'm going to buy the ticket now. By January, I'm going to make it out to Chiang Mai. It's high season. The weather's good. There's all the nomads there. There's Nomad Summit. So that's kind of like my starting point. And even them, I would say, they would probably take away more of the inspiration, as well as a little bit of the actionable items. But the people who already have a business, they're really going to benefit from like the high level networking, as well as the actionable items on how to get from, them making couple grand a month to really making a 6-figure income.
I hear you. I mean, a lot of times it's not necessarily, I'm sure the content is great and everything else, but a lot of times at these sort of events, it's the people who are at the event that make the event versus, necessarily what somebody says on a stage. Like, obviously inspiring stories and good keynotes are important, but, you'll find that at these events, you often click with people you wouldn't know otherwise met, you meet people you wouldn't know otherwise met, and you share knowledge and insights and stories, and that's the real beauty of it. I feel like it's the going for the dinner with people, the having coffees, the having a drink, the real high level networking, as you call it, and that's what can make these events really powerful and transformative for people in their life and their business. So
yeah, so many people have come back and saying, I met someone in the event last year and we started a business together, or
yep. Sweet. Hopefully it's working.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I think what it is people who are willing to pay for an event, and pay for, I don't want to say pay for networking, but like, pay for personal growth, pay for development. Those are the people who are serious. They don't have excuses. They are willing to do what it takes to be able to level up and, and learn and grow. So it's amazing that out of 400 people, 99.9% of those people are super positive, optimistic, open-minded, and these are the people that either are already or become super successful, and it's a really, really big change of pace than like the people that you meet online or even at like free events or just around. It's completely different. And I would happily, I love going into just myself. I go to a lot of conferences. I pay, to go to a lot of conferences year round just because I almost kind of want that to be kind of like the filter and say, I don't want to waste my time with people who aren't serious. I want to only meet people who put their money where their mouth is and and they can recognize the return on investment, of spending $200 on a ticket to potentially meeting someone or learning something that can make you 20,000 or even 200,000.
No, I mean, I hear you, and I'm on board with all of it. Like, I definitely am an advocate for the right networking events. You know, I mean, like the networking events that are right for you. Not everyone is right for you. It's kind of similar to the Google Ads thing. You know, like, is this the right thing for you? Are these the right sort of people that I want to connect with? I mean, I feel like your conference is. I'm in Canada at the time, so unfortunately, I can't get to Chiang Mai as much as I'd love to get out. But that's we fly to Canada for a big event in the start of January. So at the Shopify office. But cool. So look, just to kind of finish up, could you give me some, what would be your call to action? So do you want to mention your business? I mean, we just mentioned the Nomad Summit, and that is on January 19th in Chiang Mai. Where can people go and get tickets, and where can people find you across the web?
Yeah, so check out the event to get tickets. Go to nomadsummit.com. You can watch some of our previous year's videos. You can sign up for the email list to get some more info. If you want to follow my personal journey, I've been very transparent about everything I've done online. Since 2013, you can go back and look at my monthly income reports, even when I was just making a couple $100 a month, to my high points where I was making $10,000, $20,000, and that's all at JohnnyFD.com. Since you guys like podcasts, check out Travel Like a Boss podcast. Those are weekly interviews with people I meet while traveling who are successful. So we've now had over 210 episodes and probably 200 different business models. So even though dropshipping, was my main bread and butter, maybe it's not for you. Maybe yours is going to be one of the other, 150 or 200 business models. But I guarantee there's something out there that's going to inspire you, that you're going to be able to do, so you can get yourself out to Chiang Mai.
Johnny, thank you very much, and thank you for sharing. You have such an inspiring story, and you're very transparent. I can attest to that, both on this interview and in all of your income reports. Like you said, I mean, you don't hide anything. It's all there, true, warts and all, like the good, the bad, everything is there on your website, and you've done a great job. And you're a huge advocate for the remote work, digital nomad community, and also, for lifestyle too, not just working until you're sick and blue in the face, but actually choosing, creating a good life that allows you to do the things you enjoy, like diving, like Muay Thai, all these sorts of things. So I appreciate you coming on. Thank you. And I hope anyone who's listening who could make it to Chiang Mai would head to the Nomad Summit and hopefully meet up with you and all those other entrepreneurs.
Yeah, definitely would love to see all of you guys out there. Let us know when you buy a ticket and it says how you heard about us. Let us know you heard us on the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast. So I'd love to connect.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you found it actionable and inspiring, please be sure to give us a rating on iTunes and share it on your social media profiles. Tag us on Instagram. Get the word out there. Share it in any Facebook groups that you're in where people might be freelancers, remote employees, online entrepreneurs, anywhere that you feel and anyone that you feel could benefit from learning from today's insights and the story and the journey of this entrepreneur who was on today's podcast. Please help get the word out there. And, every rating helps, every new listener helps. And all we're trying to do here is to inspire people and, share stories to show that it is possible to create that digital nomad lifestyle. And also just, the real nitty gritty of what it actually takes to build an online business, whether that be as a freelancer or as an online business owner. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Adam Finan.
Thank you for listening to the Digital Nomad Cafe podcast. Head over to the website to access the resources and links mentioned in today's episode at digitalnomadcafe.com.